When you communicate, especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's wonderful to have a personality and to really jump off the page. People are like, oh yeah, I remember that person, real personality. And I wrote a whole book about this called How to Write Funny Characters. We all think we're frauds. We all think we don't deserve to be at this table. So if you play that up and are upfront about your insecurities about that, immediately people are relating to you on that level.
Hey, Scott, welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure to be here, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for getting the note on the dress code and the hairdo. I'm glad to see that, we're very much aligned today.
It's important that we all look alike in this new fascist world that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, people are going to be watching this going, which one's Steve? Which one's Steve? So, yeah, that's going to be good.
We're in THX 1138. We're all bald, and we're all wearing the same uniform.
I was very excited when I was approached and they were like, hey, would you like Scott on your show? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. What's he done? And then I found out about you, and then I started doing more stalking. Here's a little highlight reel. Usual stuff, best-selling author, let's be serious, a million people are.
Usual stuff.
But then it accelerates. Comedy writer, comedian, wildly regarded as one of the most influential pioneers in comedy history. That's a big accolade. Carries on. Yeah. Rolling Stone magazine and Entertainment Weekly designated you as the funniest person in America and placed you on the IT list of the hottest celebrities in show business. Graced the cover of... Sorry?
I was going to say, but nobody knows who I am. That's the beauty of it.
Well, it gets even worse then. Graced the cover of Time magazine. And this is what I like. Literally wrote the book on comedy, the best-selling How to Write Funny. You're a funny man. You know how to write funny. You've got all the accolades of being funny, but I'm going to jump into the deep end. Are people scared of making jokes today?
Some. I think they are misdirected. I don't think it's scary to make jokes. But yeah, a lot of people are. I think they're totally off on that. I go to colleges and I do an hour and they're laughing and I'm making fun of everything. And then I hear from like Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock, I don't do colleges anymore. The kids are too touchy. I'm not seeing it. I don't see it.
So why are we getting this? We obviously had the very famous slap, the slap that was heard around the planet. You've had a lot of work with people that have actually gone on and actually won Emmys, Grammys, and Oscars. So you're very much in that environment. But there's a lot of people now finding so many things triggerable or taboo. How do you get over that, get through it, avoid it? What are your tactics?
My tactic has been pretty consistent ever since I kind of learned how to do it, I would say through the late 80s, early 90s, starting up The Onion. And that was by adopting this little credo that came from the world of progressive journalism, but applies to comedy. And that is comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And if your satire is doing that, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about getting canceled. You don't have to worry about triggering. You're always on the right side. So that's what you see from professional comedians. Anyone who does this for a living knows that's how you do it. Audiences like when you go after the elites and the powerful. They like when you tear them down. They don't like when you go after people who are already down, the oppressed, the downtrodden, the minority. That's not cool. So some people try to be edgy by going after minority groups. Not funny. It's never going to be funny. And, you're going to find a little bit of an audience, in the KKK demographic or whatever. And you might have a niche thing going on. But if you try to step outside that and go mainstream, it's not going to look good for you.
No. There is no technical difficulty here, but I am jumping in to give you a PSA. If you like what you're hearing, if it's helping you, if it's benefiting you, I just want to let you know that there may be other ways that I can help you. Jump over to stevesims.com, learn about my speakeasies, learn about my Sims distillery, my coaching, any way that can help you. But again, if it helps you, great. If not, then listen to this podcast and at minimum, action what you're doing. Anyway, I'm going to get you back to your usual showing. Enjoy the rest of the show. Bye for now. But today, people are actually scared not only of being funny, but actually communicating. You know, they're scared. I keep using the word scared. COVID has got us very much disconnected with how to communicate. And I remember when COVID, ended, I think it was like 2:00 on a Tuesday, all of a sudden it bloody vanished. There were people that literally was having social hangovers. They hadn't been used to speaking with people for so long that now they were in an environment where they were having a conversation and it was tiring them out. And you brought up words that didn't exist 3 years ago. Cancel culture, gotcha society, triggering. We didn't have those things now. And now they're out there like landmines. And people are not very good at communicating, for one, and they're scared shitless to communicate in case they upset anyone. Add those two things together, people are not communicating. Yet there's nothing better than laughter.
Yeah, I think, everything you said is true. Those things we didn't really hear about before. Whenever a new minority group gets a prominent seat at the main table, we learn new things, and we learn what other experiences people are having who haven't really had a chance to tell us about their experiences. So what we're learning now about are neurodivergent people. And there are more people like that than there probably ever have been. There are theories about that. There's a lot of poor nutrition, and there's a lot of toxins in the environment. Who knows why it's happening? But the reality is, well, even despite that, despite natural or long-term causes for that sort of stuff, there are people with trauma, with real trauma, people who have mental illness. Those people are all on the spectrum. So we learn about a word like triggering. And so if you say something that's triggering to someone, then you basically are triggering a trauma response, like a PTSD response. Like if a veteran hears firecrackers go off, they get triggered. It triggers their mental illness, and they become they have a very difficult time coping with that. So that's all that is. So obviously you can't know everyone's triggers. You can't be a totally safe person to talk. And anyone who goes out in public or talks to people or listens to people needs to know that sometimes people are going to say triggering things without even trying to. When people get into trouble is when they go out and purposefully do things that they know are triggering a huge number of people who have made it very clear that, hey, these things trigger us. And in my opinion, it's just not polite to do that. I want to be a success in the comedy world. I want to produce comedy that makes people laugh. I don't want to anger people or trigger people or, cause people to re-experience, to be re-traumatized. So I'm not going to go there. And frankly, I don't understand the other professional communicators who want to do that, except that on some level, I do understand that they want to get attention, and they want to cause controversy. They want to get a whole bunch of people angry so that increases the heat on them. Not the kind of heat I want, but there are people who have a whole business based on that, a whole persona based on that. I trigger people. I'm not going to be polite. I'm not going to treat people the way they want to be treated. I'm going to treat them the way I think they should be treated. And I don't think history is going to be a good judge of those people. I think those people are going to look terrible in 10, 20, 30 years.
Do they care? Let's be serious. 10 to 20, 30 years. People are worried today. People are worried today that no one's checking out their Instagram page next week. They don't care about 10 or 20 years.
Frankly, I don't know if the world's going to be here in 30 years. But if it is, those people will not be looked on fondly. They're going to be the Bull Connors and the Senator McCarthy's of their era.
There's a lot of people out there that do chase controversy. And that controversy, let's be serious, saying something negative or doing something negative gets more attention than, say, positivity. If we look, and again, I don't want to dwell on it, but if we talk about the slap again, okay? If you asked anyone, hey, name 3 winners of the Oscars this year, they couldn't. But if you say, hey, what went on, they would talk about that. So negativity always has a greater reach and command of attention than positivity. So some people are riding that wave. But I want to bring it around to your book, and I'm going to call it out. When you wrote your book, what was the genesis behind it? What was the reason behind it? Because I think it's very valuable for us today to learn how to communicate and to learn how to communicate with humor, which is also positivity. When did your book come out?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. It came out in 2014, and I wrote it because I didn't see a book on the market that really taught you the actual tools of comedy. There were a lot of kind of hacky books that were like, it comes in threes and use the K sound. It's funny. And I just knew from my long experience in comedy at that point that there was a lot more to it, but there was a code. There was clearly a comedy code that nobody was talking about. Insiders would talk about it. We would talk about it all the time in the Onion writers' rooms, you know, assessing whether a joke worked or not. And so I left the Onion and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to write this down. I'm going to do my first non-humor, non-fiction book and just write it all, to spell it all out. Here's how you do it. It's the book I wish that I had found when I was, 16, trying to figure out how to be funny and try to succeed in the comedy business. I didn't have a clue. And I got Steve Allen's book, How to Be Funny. And it was kind of insane. It was like his rants to his secretary that she transcribed, and they didn't really make any sense. I couldn't make hide nor hair of that book. That was kind of the book on the market. That was it. So that's why I wrote it. And yeah, it's an effective guide for communicating with humor, communicating positively, kindly, and just to make the world a funnier, lighter place. You're right that we live in this terrible time where social media rewards negativity and controversy, and anyone who's like going after that to build their platform, they're just going to the dark side. It's like, yes, it's quick and easy, but I admire the people who take the long and slow route to build something really meaningful, where they're positive and they're funny and their fans love them, and they didn't get where they are by creating a bunch of people who hate them. Like, that's just awful, who want to get into angry arguments with them. I just don't see there's really no edification in that,
No, it doesn't make sense at all. I'm going to call it out. I want people to go and check out Scott's book, How to Write Funny. And the website's really tough, howtowritefunny.com. All right. So I'm going to
a long time to try to think of the website name after the book. Yeah.
You did well. You did well. We're going to put that in the show notes. So if any of you are driving and you want to go back to, because you couldn't hold that in your brain for 3 seconds, you can go back and you can check it out later. Now, some of the greatest actors out there that we see are very well established in comedy, and they deliver that line so well because of timing. Now, how important, and they all say timing's everything. I remember once I was with Jay Leno and a fan came running up and tried to tell Jay a joke. And, of course, in front of Jay, got nervous, screwed up the punchline, and Jay looked at him and he went, "It's not as easy as it seems, is it, mate?" And that was it. How valuable is timing, and how can we get it right?
Yeah, timing is really important. And I talk about it in my book. My book focuses on writing comedy, which is how I came up through the industry. And in writing, you barely have any control over the timing. So there are certain things you can do to influence it. There are certain ways you can sort of guide the reader into how they pace it, but you don't have nearly the control that like a stand-up performer does or a joke teller does. So while I do acknowledge that timing is important, I don't think it's even in the top 10 of important things in comedy. I think when you tell a joke is really just a function of comedy equals tragedy plus or minus time or distance. So that's something to take into account. I think when you deliver material, the amount of time you pause reading the audience and then deciding when to say the punchline, for example, can help a joke do better, but only marginally. You know, a joke is going to work based on how well written it is and how smart it is, how good it is. So not to poo-poo the age-old wisdom, but yeah, I don't know if timing is that important.
All right. That brings us around to another point. Most of us that are listening to this are entrepreneurs. They are business owners, solopreneurs, getting into their own business. And most of the way we communicate, in fact, probably around 90% of the way that we communicate with each other is via email, text, blog, posting, social. So it is all writing. Okay, so we have to get through that writing because it's with that copy that gets the person to go, hey, I want to speak with that person. And then they end up having that conversation. So if we are going to write, is learning to write in a humorous nature going to help us to learn to write naturally in all of our sales techniques? Or is it different?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the techniques in my book, there are 11 different ways to be funny. And that's it. There's no more. 11. One of them is through character. And so when you communicate, especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's wonderful to have a personality and to really jump off the page. People are like, oh yeah, I remember that person, real personality. And I wrote a whole book about this called How to Write Funny Characters, where I go through like the 40 most popular character archetypes and why audiences love them, why they keep coming back, and how creators can create new characters that use these archetypes but make them seem fresh and original, which happens all the time. And anyone who communicates like professionally and wants to be memorable would do well to study these character archetypes, figure out which archetype they are, or which archetype hybrid, that's often what it is, and then accentuate that personality in the writing, in the way you communicate, the words you use. And, you know, there's so many little things you can do in writing to make a personality pop off the page. I, for one, love communicating via email with people who have a big personality because their emails are really different. You know, they have a different sign off. They have a different salutation. They use different punctuation. They just do cool, different things, you know? And I sort of get tired of the same old, like, flat, you know, dear so-and-so, best regards, so-and-so, you know? It's like boring. So, and because I deal with a lot of people in the comedy world, I do see a lot of fun and original ways of being in writing. And I love that. I love that. So more people should do that. I think it's an underutilized method of furthering one's own, you know, personal brand.
On that, I want to break that down a little bit because there's a couple of things. You said basically, not embellish. I forget what the word you used was about your personal character. We don't want to get into a situation where we're creating a fake persona. We just want to amplify our persona. There's nothing worse than hearing someone, seeing someone, reading someone, and then meeting someone and going, well, actually, they're different. You know, it's like a lot of actors, people meet them for their roles and they don't realize that the actor's a different personality. So you've got to be able to expand your character without falling into the fake world. But you mentioned about there's these different archetypes. Can you give us a couple of examples?
Yeah. So one example is the klutz. And you don't see this one very much anymore at all. Used to be very common. Jerry Lewis did this one a good amount. Gilligan on Gilligan's Island was a klutz. And this is someone who is just clumsy, physically clumsy. So you could transfer that to alliteration and have it be somebody who's clumsy with words and like, oops, wrong word, you know. And if that's like who you are, and again, like you said, it's not about inventing a fake character for yourself. It's about figuring out who you really are and then just turning it up all the way, you know, just turn it up all the way and make your personality bigger. So another one that I love, and I think I tend to fall into just because it's who I am, and that is the bumbling authority. One of my favorite character archetypes. It's someone who's supposed to be an expert, an authority figure, but they are make a lot of mistakes. Like the absent-minded professor is a good example of that. They're supposed to be really smart, but they're actually like pretty stupid. It's a great like self-deprecating character if you play it in a kindly way. A lot of times it's played as the butt of jokes, which is fine. You can play the boob, and that's fun, and people love that. But there are also more traditional archetypes, like the everyman, the every person, I call it. The hero, the grown-up child is another one. You wouldn't necessarily want to be some of these. The trickster is another one, and that's a good one to be. Like, how many people have you known in your life that love practical jokes, and they love saying something, then they turn around, just kidding you. That's a trickster character. And if that's something that's part of somebody's personality, there's no harm in exaggerating that and realizing, hey, that's who I am. I'm going to be that. I'm going to own that. And just going to make that I'm going to become more comfortable in my own skin, more self-aware of who I am. And I'm just going to be authentic,
The way I remember Ryan Dice, a friend of mine, used to talk about the character diamond, and he used to talk about amplifying certain aspects, and he used to pick on characters that we know about, and one of them was Superman. Superman could literally destroy a planet just by looking at it, but he couldn't talk to girls because he was that klutzy character. But it made him relatable. Yeah, you can't relate to Superman holding up an airplane, but you could relate to him not being able to speak to a woman. Okay, right. So you had, by amplifying your trait, you're actually making it more of a catch to those people that go, I'm a trickster. Oh, I'm a bumbling expert. Oh, I'm a klutz. And you make it more relatable, and you end up catching your people.
That's the beauty of all these archetypes, is that they speak to a little part of all of us, because we all have part of those traits in us. We all think we're frauds. We all think we don't deserve to be at this table. So if you play that up and are upfront about your insecurities about that, immediately people are relating to you on that level, And like you said, any other archetype you pick, it's like people are like, yeah, I relate to that, It's a little relatable piece of you that you can put out there, and people will connect and say, oh yeah, I'm like that. So if you want to be like the klutz or the bumbling authority, and I was talking about the grown-up child archetype, where that's a person who displays too much emotion for the situation. And that's funny. And you don't have to be childish or annoying. You can just use the crying emoji when something bad happens, little touches like that. It's personable. And again, if it's part of your normal personality, if that's the sort of person you are, where you're a little kind of hyperbolic in how you express emotion, seize that and take ownership of it and be authentic. People like that.
You were talking about this as how to really grow your personal brand, and personal brands have become something incredibly important and vital to any business. If you think about any of the big companies, there's usually a man behind it or a woman behind it that's driving at what they stand for. That's what the company stands for. So the personal brand of being able to expose, not hide, and not hide behind a suit or look or a photoshopped picture, but by utilizing those imperfections to show who you actually are, make it easier for someone to connect with you. And again, we're back to that pre-COVID and COVID situation. We're desperate. While we're also really good at attacking each other, we're also desperate to connect today. But we want to know who we can connect with. And you use the word authentic. We want to be able to look at someone and go, Scott, that's my man. That's the person I want to deal with. That's who I want to go with. And you're making it very easy for them to make a decision on that by amplifying your imperfections, your traits, and your personalities. So the connection business, that's what we're in, isn't it?
Oh my God. What's more important than that? Like making personal connections. That's what it's all about. Having a high EQ. That's what all these things do. They incentivize you to reach out and make connections with people, and they compel other people to reach and connect back to you. So, it's critical. And you could take some of the negative character archetypes, like, the jerk or the psycho or something like that, And you could be a pretend version of that. If, again, that's part of your personality. Any one of these would work. Like Don Rickles made a whole career out of being the jerk. You know, he would insult people, and people loved it. They craved being insulted by him. You know, it was just his character. So, yeah, you know, we're navigating this totally new thing with social media where it's just not like it used to be. You don't call people. You don't just chat. You don't see people on the street. You don't say, hey, let's do lunch. You're communicating through a computer, and you're communicating often to a large group. You're often not just communicating one-on-one. It's crazy, and I don't think we've fully figured that out. Like, I think it's been a Pandora's box in many ways. Like you said, it's unleashed a lot of the worst characteristics of human beings, and on rare occasion, I see where it fosters the best of us. You know, where people really realize, hey, this is an opportunity to build something positive and, you know, grow a fan base that really likes who I am on some sort of authentic level. You know, but because of the nature of it, the people we hear about the most are the controversial ones, the ones who are drawing all that negative heat.
That's the thing. You know, we're more aligned because we're very cynical now. We're very cynical, yeah. We're very skeptical, we're very distrusted. So the second someone does anything that's bad or whatever, we look at them more. They get our attention more than good. That's why the news is made up of 90% bad, and then the last 5 minutes of the news show tries to show a three-legged pig that's got its fourth leg back, and we're all supposed to rejoice that the news is good. Yet they've screwed us over for 90% of the show. I can't help thinking that what you teach and train is more vital today than probably it ever's been, because we all need a laugh today, don't we?
Yeah, no, I agree. And, you know, I put this book out in 2014, not really expecting anything. I just kind of slipped it on Amazon, self-published, didn't promote it or get a publisher to put it out or do a book tour or anything like that. And it just sort of grew and grew and grew into this thing where it's now like this perennial bestseller. And I've written all these sequels because people were just hungry for information about this. So yeah, that's my goal. I want people to create better comedy. I want the world to be a funnier, more pleasant place to live. And sometimes it feels like fighting an uphill battle, but I'm going to keep at it.
Keep doing it, Scott. I got your back. I think this is absolutely fantastic. Again, call it out, because you've got a better accent than me. What is the website that these people need to go to?
No, you have the best accent. It's howtowritefunny.com if you want to find me and see what I'm up to.
I urge you to do that. Try putting more humor into your work, and also try amplifying and using his techniques. He's not sent me a book, and he doesn't need to, because I'm going to go and buy it now. So there you go. Right? Listening and chatting with this guy, I need to know about the archetypes. I need to know how to amplify this. So it's all your fault, Scott. So, Scott, thank you very much for being a guest on the show, and thank you very much for doing what you do.
Thank you so much, Steve. My pleasure. Take care.
All the best. Hey, I hope you liked that episode of the Art of Making Things Happen podcast. And remember, these are done for you. If you like them, subscribe, share them around. But if you don't like them, send me an email to ask@stevedsims.com, and you can tell me what I need to do to make this the most dynamic podcast you listen to. Anyway, make sure whatever you learned from the last podcast, you actually do something with. Without action, it's just a bunch of people blowing air. Have a good time. Until next time. Bye.